Week 3 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders. Last week, tough game it was for Bowers. Numbers were down. Him and Geno Smith couldn't connect on Monday night, and he's definitely banged up. He has a bulky knee brace on. He played through it. Was Brock Bowers. Obviously not 100%, but still got open, but they just couldn't connect on plays. So this week at Washington, they know they got to put points on the board. Is this Las Vegas Raider team? And Brock Bowers, even not at 100%, I think could go out there, have a big ball game. The targets are there. Just him and Geno got to get on the same page, and sometimes it takes a few weeks with a new quarterback and obviously new tight end receiver to get on the same page. Number 2, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. So 2 steady weeks to begin the season here for Trey McBride. Easily the number 1 option in the passing game for this Arizona Cardinal team. And this week a matchup at San Francisco, what obviously very familiar with is Trey McBride in his NFL career playing in the same division. So McBride, he's a matchup problem. Him and Kyler Murray, they've been locked in ever since McBride has been in the league. And this week at the Lions, I expect another good game out of him. Number 3, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. I've said this a lot in videos. Kraft easily could be the number 1 option in the passing game for this Green Bay Packer team, and that's exactly what's been happening now the first 2 weeks of the season. Week 1, he did score a touchdown, but didn't do much besides that. And then last week, he went over 100 yards and found the end zone. So Tucker Kraft, he's a matchup problem. He has good hands, one of the better yard after catch tight ends in the league. And this week at Cleveland, I think he could go out there and have a big game. Once again, number 4, Tyler Warren of the Indianapolis Colts. So Tyler Warren already only 2 games into his NFL career and already one of the better tight ends in fantasy football. So him and Daniel Jones, they're on the same page. Daniel Jones, it's been his number 1 target, I think, is Warren in the first 2 weeks of the season. I know Pittman had a good week 1, but besides that, his numbers haven't really been there. And this week, it's another good matchup. They're going on the road at the Tennessee Titans. So Jones and Warren, they're locked in. If Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, I don't think Warren would be steady numbers to begin the season. And this week at Tennessee, it's a matchup I think he could take advantage of and have a good game. Number 5, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe I'm higher on Kelce than other people going into the week. But Kelce, 2 games in a row to start the year, double-digit fantasy points. If he didn't drop that ball at the 1-yard line off his hands and picked off, he most likely breaks that tackle and finds the end zone. So this week, it's win or pretty much not make the playoffs for Kansas City, because they could start 0-3. And I know a couple teams have made the playoffs at 0-3, but nowadays it's just tougher. So this week, Sunday night at the Giants, a defense that can't stop anyone. We saw Jake Ferguson go out there and have a monster game versus defense. I think Kelce and the Chiefs, after 2 tough losses versus obviously 2 great teams, no doubt about it, this is an easier matchup for them. I think Kelce goes out there, has one of his better games of the year. Number 6, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. Week 1 was a good game for Laporta. And then last week, where the Lions scored 52 points, of course, he only goes out there and scores 5.60 fantasy points. So this week at Baltimore, points are going to be put on the board both ways, I believe, in this game. Sam Laporta, we know he's a matchup problem. We know his rookie season as well. He went out there and broke a lot of tight end records until Brock Bowers broke all of those in 2024. But Sam Laporta is a matchup problem. He's getting a lot of zone coverage. Safeties can't cover him. Linebackers obviously can't cover him. And this week at Baltimore, they got to play better on the road as Detroit. We know at home they're a juggernaut offensively, but on the road, they got to figure ways out to get easier completions and gain yards. And I think that's going through Sam Laporta in the middle of the field. Number 7, Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. So Johnson, 2 weeks in a row to begin the season now, 15 or more fantasy points in PPR leagues. In my opinion, he might be the number 1 option in the passing game. Chris Olave, he's getting peppered with targets, but they're really not hitting big over there in New Orleans. And also Rashid Shaheed's had 2 pretty solid games to begin the season. This week at Seattle, they know they got to put points on the board. Seattle's been playing good defense to begin the season. But Juwan Johnson, he's always had upside, no doubt about it, but never a guy consistently getting targeted. But Spencer Rattler, a young quarterback's best friend's the tight end position, someone on key third downs in the red zone that you kid. And so far this season, not worrying about Taysom Hill taking snaps and packages at the tight end position. Juwan Johnson's going out there and playing up to full potential. Next tight end, Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. Ferguson, week 1, he didn't do much in that ball game when the Cowboys offense, besides CeeDee Lamb and Javonte Williams, was non-existent. And then last week, in that barn burner up and down the field, where the Cowboys won a thriller in overtime 40-37. Ferguson had a monster game versus the Giants. 9 catches, 78 yards, and 12 targets. So this week, more of the same, I think, at Soldier Field, where both these teams can't play defense. There's going to be a lot of scoring. And Ferguson and Dak Prescott, they've been locked in ever since Ferguson's been the starting tight end a couple seasons ago after Dalton Schultz left in free agency to the Houston Texans. So this week at Chicago, I expect another high-scoring game, and for Ferguson to go out there and have a good one. Number 9, Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. We'll see if Daniels plays in this game, but if it's Marcus Mariota, I think Zach Ertz will be fine either way. Mariota, we know he's a veteran quarterback. He's a bust out. He was a second-round pick many years ago in his NFL draft class. But Zach Ertz, he's the number 2 target, in my opinion, in the passing game right now. Deebo Samuel has been playing great the first 2 weeks of the season. Terry McLaurin, obviously not up to snuff, holding out all the training camp, getting his money, and rightfully so for Deebo. But Zach Ertz last season was making plays, and this season's found the end zone twice. And even at the latter part of his career, he still could run routes. He still has a great IQ with Zach Ertz, and he just knows how to work the middle of the field and a big red zone target. And this week in a matchup versus the Raiders, where their defense isn't that good, I think Ertz goes out there once again and has a good ball game. Number 10, Harold Fannin Jr. of the Cleveland Browns. So if Fannin Jr. wasn't, sharing targets and snaps at the tight end position with David Njoku, he would be higher on this list as Harold Fanning. So far in 2 games, he's gone out there and he's looked impressive in this Brown offense, even though we know this Brown team's not going to win a lot of games. A lot of garbage time is where they're going to get their fantasy points. And this week, once again, in a tough matchup versus arguably the best defense in all pro football, Green Bay Packers coming to the dog pound in week 3. They're going to have to throw the football a whole lot, and Harold Fanning, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, but like I said, with David Njoku there, it's just going to hold them down a little bit numbers-wise. Number 11, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. Goedert, he returned to practice. It looks like he's going to give it a go. And Goedert, week 1, he was the number 1 option in the passing game, where A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith didn't do much. Jalen Hurts has a lot of confidence in Goedert, gets him the football in the right places. And Goedert, we know he's a good yard after catch tight end and a big target in the red zone. So this week in a potential high-scoring game with the Rams coming to town, I think Goedert could go out there and have another solid performance. 12, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. So far, Kincaid, the first 2 weeks, he's looked pretty decent. Week 1, 4 catches, 48 yards. And then last week, 7.70 fantasy points in PPR leagues. So Kincaid, believe it or not, he's been the most consistent guy in the first 2 weeks. Keon Coleman, I know, had the monster week 1, but then week 2, only 3 catches, 26 yards it was for Keon Coleman. So Kincaid, a big target, first-round pick a few seasons ago. And this week with Miami coming in and a Thursday night game where those games are usually high-scoring, I think Kincaid this week could crack the top 12 in points. 13, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. So this week on paper, a good matchup with Cincinnati coming to town. Now with Carson Wentz in their quarterback, with J.J. McCarthy out 2 to 4 weeks with his injury after the Falcons gave it to him in that one with 6 sacks and a lot of big hits in that game. But TJ Hawkinson, first 2 weeks, he's been non-existent. Last week, he only had 1 catch for 12 yards. But with Carson Wentz, a gunslinger in there, and a guy who's not scared to drive the football down the field and make mistakes, I think the upside for Hawkinson could be a little bit better. But going off the first 2 weeks where his routes haven't looked crisp and he's lost a step, it looks like, still not 100%, I believe, as well from the ACL injury, I'm going to temper expectations. 14, Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not buying into all this Kyle Pitts hype. Obviously, he's a little bit better than he was last season, but still, the numbers aren't elite for Kyle Pitts. In the first 2 weeks in PPR leagues, he's 11th overall in fantasy points is Kyle Pitts. But I think he's a tight end where his ceiling's capped regardless, with guys like Bijan Robinson and Drake London. His options way over Pitts in that offense over there in Atlanta. And this could be a matchup at Carolina where on paper it's great, no doubt about it, but that they run the football early, get off to a nice lead, and then the second half, like last week's game in Minnesota, they just run the football a whole lot and no one does much. So Kyle Pitts, like I said, I don't think the ceiling's high. And yes, he's off to a great start, but I have to see more before he really moves up the rankings as Pitts. And the 15th and final tight end ranking is David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. So Harold Fannis, I got him in the top 10 this week. I think his upside's better. A lot of garbage time they're going to play in this one versus Green Bay, a lockdown type of defense towards the end of the game. And Njoku, his snap count's gone down, and his ceiling has gone down as well. Last week, I know he had 4 for 40 was David Njoku, but he's a tight end, no doubt about it. Great athlete, guy could run all the routes, make the plays, but now with Harold Fannis eating into his workload and looking like the better tight end out of the two in this system so far this season, I don't think the ceiling Typhon Njoku sets atop 15 tight ends I'm ranking for week 3 of the fantasy football season.